what should the role of government be in the economy and society? Hear what Pope Leo XIII says about that in this episode of the Catholic Money Show.
Welcome back to our Rerum Novarum series. This is part 3 of this series. There are 2 parts that you can find before this that deal with paragraphs 1 through 30 in Rerum Novarum, an encyclical that was written by Pope Leo XIII in the 1800s.
Yes.
Why are we going through this? Well, if you haven't listened to the first episode yet, spoiler, Pope Leo XIV, our current pontiff, he has had some callbacks to this bombshell encyclical that Pope Leo XIII wrote, and in many ways chose his name as kind of a continuation of Pope Leo XIII's legacy was really Rerum Novarum and the church speaking into and wading into the waters of the Industrial Revolution and the atrocities that were happening at that time. And I believe Pope Leo XIV, if we're reading his actions correctly, I have not sat down with him and confirmed this.
Yet. Hopefully.
Maybe he's listening. Let me know. Email us. He is concerned about the AI revolution that is upon us and the implications of that and what it could mean in society. And so we are at just as an important moment in human history as well as church history. So he chose the name Leo XIV, and I would not be shocked if one of his first couple of encyclicals does not pick up the torch that has also been picked up by many other popes since Pope Leo XIII wrote Rerum Novarum. And if he doesn't have a way to modernly apply the principles that were kind of laid as a foundation of Catholic social teaching in Rerum Novarum so long ago, kind of now in modern times, how that might look and what the responsibility of civilians and people in the world might be, but also governments might be. Yeah. Why don't you just recap? What have we read so far?
Sure. Yeah, so you can grab your own little copy of Rerum Novarum if you're following along at home. And I really do suggest you read this thing.
Please.
It's a pleasure to read. Some passages are they're certainly powerful.
The whole thing's underlined.
Beautiful. Yes, there are many paragraphs or sections where it's just like you underline the whole thing.
We're not even going to tell you our thoughts. We're just going to read the paragraph.
Yeah, for some of those, yeah. So it's Rerum Novarum, so new things. He talks about this revolutionary change and kind of his little subtitle on his letter on the rights and duties of capital and labor. So the working class and the owning class, how we can work together instead of being opposed and trying to use one another. So he talks about just kind of what's going on right now in the world, especially with labor. He talks about private ownership, so private property, how that's a fundamental kind of human right and is just. He talks about the family, and then he kind of lays into socialism a bit, talks about how that's just not the solution. But, because he said, hey, things aren't working so well right now with how kind of capitalism has found itself. But these guys talk about socialism. They don't have the answer for sure. And here's why. And he starts talking about employers and employees and about an inequality, not an inequality. That was, I think, an interesting way to talk about it. And then the right use of money.
Right up our alley.
Yes, that's one of those. Underline it all paragraphs, number 22. And then he talks about how the church is showing us through example how to do this. And now, today, we look at the role of the state. The state in governmental power and the role that it plays and maybe shouldn't play in helping alleviate
capital and
some
labor.
Of these issues.
And today, if you are playing along at home, we are going to be reading through paragraphs 31 through
41.
41. Okay.
A little sneak peek, a little taster of 42.
Ooh, okay. Exciting. So I'm going to kick us off with 31. Not a whole lot there other than just setting up.
It's his transition paragraph. It's a transition turns it over. Essentially, yeah, he's just saying...
Mine to sum up.
Yes, sorry.
He's just saying that we need to cooperate together, and now it is time to inquire what part the state should play in the work of a remedy and relief of the frustrations that were plaguing human civilization at that moment.
Yep.
There we go.
That's 31?
32 is one of those everything's underlined.
32 is a real goodie. Yes, because he just said the state has a role to play here. Now in 32, he is defining state. He's like, okay, I just said the state has a role. Now,
Who's the state?
what do I mean by that? Yeah. New Pope, who dis? So he's talking about the state. So he goes and, he says, we understand not the particular form of government prevailing in this or that nation, but like a truer, deeper sense of the state. And he mentions, another encyclical there. Kind of see this one that I already talked about. But he says here that the general character and administration of the Commonwealth should be, their main aim, and that shall be such as themselves to realize public well-being and private prosperity. So public well-being, that everybody is doing well, and private prosperity, that everybody is doing well.
Every household, individual.
Yeah, so the collective and the individual
both
are their concerns.
Yep.
This is the proper scope of wise statesmanship and the work of the rulers. And this is the part I had really underlined. Now, a state chiefly prospers and thrives through moral rule, well-regulated family life, respect for religion and justice, the moderation and fair imposing of public taxes, the progression of the arts and of trade, the abundant yield of the land, really through everything, in fact, which makes the citizens better and happier. And he says that it's the power of the ruler to benefit every class in the state, and amongst the rest, to promote to the utmost the interests of the poor. And then a little bit later on, he says, is the province of the Commonwealth to serve the common good. And the more that is done for the benefit of the working classes by the general laws of the country, the less need will there be to seek for special means to relieve them. So we want to make sure everyone's taken care of. He gives that little list of things. And golly, if I look at those, right, a good family life, moral rule, respect for religion, fair, moderate taxes, arts, trade, abundant yields, like, yes,
the land.
That makes a great system. That would be great. And yeah, those are things I think that the state can help make happen. And I think it just seems practical there at the end of, hey, the more you help people, just like as you set stuff up, the less work you're going to need to do later to fix where maybe there's a lack. So just take care of it in the general setup.
Yep. All right, so then transitioning to 33, he says there's another deep consideration which must not be lost sight of. As regards to the state, the interests of all, whether high or low, are equal. The members of the working classes are citizens by nature, and by the same right as the rich, they are the real parts, living the life which makes up, through the family, the body of the Commonwealth, and it need hardly be said that they are in every city very largely the majority. It would be irrational to neglect one portion of the citizens in favor another, and therefore the public administration must duly and solicitly provide for the welfare and the comfort of working classes. Otherwise, the law of justice would be violated, which ordains that each man shall have his due. But essentially, if the state is looking at getting involved in this, it can't play favorites. Like any good parent with their own children, they need to be thinking about what's good for each of them individually, but also what's good for the collective whole. We're not going to be just enacting policies or taxes that are going to be only beneficial for one and not the other. We have to, as societies, in our governments, both and, right, have to be preeminent as we're going to go about creating regulations or getting involved or creating laws, etc. There's not one over another. And I think that we are particularly in the United States of America while we are recording this in modern times. And this right here could go a long, long, long way if Congress truly dropped kind of these false dichotomies of needing to put one over another and actually embracing what might be best for all and balancing that better, it would solve so much conflict, so much frustration, and so much immorality, honestly, because it's not right to put anybody over another.
That's right. He continues in 34, he says, all citizens, without exception, can and ought to contribute to that common good in which individuals share so advantageously to themselves. So everybody can contribute to the common good. Everybody can make it better and should. Yet, he says, it should not be supposed that all can contribute in the like way and to the same extent.
Yep.
Jesus say, yeah, we all have that role. We all got to do something. We all can't do the same thing or the same amount.
Yep.
And then just kind of making mention of those differences. He says, no matter what changes may occur in forms of government, so no matter how it is set up, there will ever be differences and inequalities of condition in a state. So there's always going to be these differences. Maybe I feel like this might be a little bit of a callback to some of these false promises of socialism that he highlighted of. Everyone will be taken care of. Everything's equal for all. Everybody gets it all.
If we could just tweak this or that, it'll
possible.
erase all suffering.
Yeah, there will always be differences. Yeah. Different people can do different things and have different availability to do it. So he talks about that. And then he talks about kind of the different parts of a society and how they contribute to the common good. So first he talks about those who work in and help administer the government.
Yeah.
Those who are in the military. And he talks about those two, especially because the work they do, or the work they should be doing, is directly linked to the common good of every citizen. Right? The government should be serving all, and that's the work that government people are in, is the service to the common good.
And they ought to be held to the highest accountability.
Yes.
Because of that.
Yes, held in the highest estimation and highest responsibility. Then he talks about those who labor at a trade or calling. It might not necessarily be the general welfare they are directly helping. If somebody's, making cabinets or something, not the general welfare, but through their work and helping individuals, that is improving the general welfare and the common good. So it's less direct, but he says, in a most important manner. Then he goes on, and he talks about how the provision of even commodities, he says, the labor of the working class, the exercise of their skill, the employment of their strength in the cultivation of the land and in the workshops of trade is especially responsible and quite indispensable. And it says that the labor of working men, it is through that states grow rich. And then he says, justice therefore demands that the interests of the working classes should be carefully watched over by the administration, so that they who contribute so largely to the advantage of the community may themselves share in the benefits which they create, that being housed, clothed, and bodily fit, they may find their life less hard and more endurable. And he says a little bit, he's like, don't worry about if you kind of taking care of the workers, what about everybody else? Because he says, it will be to the advantage of all, for it cannot but be good for the commonwealth to shield from misery those on whom it so largely depends for the things that it needs. By taking care of those who kind of do the hard and necessary jobs, we will end up taking care of everyone.
Yeah, and this might feel like it's in a little bit of juxtaposition to what he just said of we can't just single out or favor one particular over another. We have to states should consider all, both the rich and the poor, the working and the owner. But then in 35, he begins to transition, and he does. And this is one of those bedrocks of Catholic social teaching, where just like our Lord, we have to have an affinity or a special space for the poor. And he's going to go into talking about why that is. And so he says in 35, we have said that the state must not absorb the individual or the family. Both should be allowed free and untrammeled action.
Ooh.
Untrammeled, that's a good word I haven't heard in a while. Ever.
I was going to say it's a long while for me.
So far as it is consistent with the common good and the interests of others. And then he continues on that, the business of the supreme power, that the safety of the commonwealth is not only the first law, but a government's whole reason of existence. And that the state should not be not the advantage of the ruler, but the benefit of those over who it is placed. As the power to rule comes from God, as it were, a participation in the highest of all sovereignties, it should be exercised as the power of God is exercised, with fatherly solicitude, which not only guides the whole, but reaches individuals. So he's kind of transitioning now into talking about how being in government, the only proper way to understand the authority given to a state is by understanding that authority has been given unto us by God. And that we are guiding the whole, but also caring about the individuals under our care. And it makes me think of that conversation that Jesus had with Pilate. When Pilate's kind of asking, like, don't you know I'm in charge here? I have the authority here. And Jesus is like, no, the only authority you have is because my Father gave it to you. He was already reminding us of Catholic social teaching in that moment. And Pope Leo XIII is capturing that reality here to remind states that this was actually given to you from above. This is not something you concocted out of your own thoughts. It's an extension of the authority that God has over all mankind.
What struck me here is, I've heard this various places and all that, right? The way that I am a father, the way that the relationship that I build and the way I serve my kids should, hopefully, or it will influence the way they see God. And hopefully it's a good influence and it helps reveal truth about the God who loves us, our Heavenly Father. But this is saying the way our government works, the way our government, or should work, the way our government should serve the people and the common good, should reveal to us more about the Father.
That's a far cry from the truth.
And I don't know if that's happening right now. So that's incredible. Wouldn't that be incredible? If you could sit and meditate upon the way the state is put together and the way it's serving its people, and
beautifully,
think about how that, and get insights into how our Lord works. That'd be great.
That'd be great.
That would be great, wouldn't it? Someday, maybe. So he moves on. So yeah, we're making this little bit of a pivot now into looking more, zooming in, right? We're at the state, then we're looking at kind of these classes, and now we're gonna go a little bit further in now, closer to the individual. So 36, he says, whether the general interest or any particular class suffers or is threatened with harm, which can in no other way be met or prevented, the public authority must step in to deal with it. So he's saying, okay, when these things are going on, the state can't act, and it should.
Must.
It's the responsibility of good government. Yeah, so he says, to the interest of the community as well as of the individual, that peace and good order should be maintained. And then he calls back to this list of things, which is similar to before. He says, peace and good order should be maintained. All things should be carried on in accordance with God's laws and those of nature. That the discipline of family life should be observed, and that religion should be obeyed. That a high standard of morality should prevail, both in public and private life. That justice should be held sacred, and that no one should injure another with impunity. So you're kind of this list of, hey, this is kind of the situation that you should hope to see in your country. And now this is a part I just,
Oh my, you really did.
Did just kind of circle the whole thing.
Go for it.
I'm just going to go for it, and we'll take it bit by bit then. If by a strike of workers or concerted interruption of work, there should be imminent danger of disturbance to the public peace, or if circumstances were such that among the working class, the ties of family life were relaxed. If religion were found to suffer through the workers not having time and opportunity afforded them to practice its duties. If, in workshops and factories, there were danger to morals through the mixing of the sexes or from other harmful occasions of evil. Or if employers laid burdens upon their workmen which were unjust or degraded them with conditions repugnant to their dignity as human beings. Finally, if the health were endangered by excessive labor or by work unsuited to sex or age. In such cases, there can be no question but that, within certain limits, it would be right to invoke the aid and authority of the law. So if these things are happening, yes, the state should get involved. And he says, the law must not undertake more, nor proceed further than is required for the remedy of the evil or the removal of the mischief.
So it should get involved, but only to the extent that it must, and then it needs to retreat.
Yes.
No need to overdo this, overextend or overbuild something. But
Mom and dad can get involved when there's a grave injury to one of the kids, but then the kids can figure out the rules for the game.
Okay. Grave injury.
I don't know.
I think mom's taking them to the
Maybe
ER.
it's an emotional injury some of the times, I think, that get like the things that get kicked up to us. But I thought of a number of interesting things here. This list he gives here again.
It's so good. It looks at the whole person.
Yes. And not having time and an opportunity to practice religion. My grandpa told me this story one time. He was talking to this lady at church, at the parish. I think she was a younger lady. And she cleaned hotel rooms. She was a maid. And she got a new offer or whatever she's talking about. She had interviewed with Holiday Inn. And it was for more money. But she was going to work on Sundays. And so my grandpa asked her what she's going to do. And she goes, Holiday Inn isn't going to save my soul. I'm not taking that job.
Something with their head screwed on.
So I always think of that phrase, Holiday Inn isn't going to save my soul. Because there wouldn't be the time afforded. The burdens laden upon the workmen that are unjust, degraded with conditions repugnant to their dignity. And then I think one that could rankle some people maybe is this work unsuited, would be the, where is it? The mixing.
Is the mixing up top?
Yes, I can't see it.
Where is it?
Thank you. Danger to morals through the mixing of the sexes or from other harmful occasions of evil. Now, I don't think he's saying
men and women
can't ever work together ever. But
in certain circumstances.
Some situations it might not be good. And there,
we don't need to define those right now.
No, we don't. But even, I would say though, there's ones that are very obvious, but then there are other ones where it can lead to trouble too.
Right.
If folks are not careful on their own.
Yeah, how many times have we not heard? Yes, have we not heard of
the affair with the secretary
happening at work? Yeah, there's certain things to be cautious of, and he's saying these are human sufferings that are rising out of things that potentially the state could be involved in and helping to alleviate.
This next one or two kind of talk about protection. What could be done? What
could be done? Because again, they should get involved, but they shouldn't overstep. And that's a fine line. It's delicate. And the word of the year, nuanced. But sometimes people don't want to hear nuance. They want black and white. They want something very obvious. And that's quite frustrating because then they're usually asking for which party are you with? Or, they're wanting an extreme when really the solution might be a bit of both. And so much of the church is usually going to be a both and kind of situation, considering all angles and coming up with what might be ideally, is the most just in the circumstance. All right, paragraph 37. Rights must be religiously respected where they exist, and it's the duty of the public authority to prevent and to punish injury and to protect everyone in the possession of his own. Still, when there is a question, though, of defending the rights of individuals, because again, we're now zooming in on those individuals, The poor and badly off have a claim to a special consideration. That right there, the poor and badly off have a right to a special consideration. That is a bedrock of Catholic social teaching. There are going to be modern governments that say that is stupid, or that is weak, or that is dumb, or that shouldn't be there. But as Catholics, it's just part of our bedrock Catholic social teaching and our belief. The richer classes have many ways of shielding themselves and stand less in need from help from the state. Whereas the mass of the poor have no resources of their own to fall back upon and must chiefly depend on the assistance of the state. And it is for this reason that wage earners, since they mostly belong in the mass of the needy, should be specially cared for and protected by the government. It makes sense that the government would have a special interest into making sure that those most at risk have a fallback on hard times. And that's okay, and that's good, and it should be there. Because yes, let's say somebody loses their job, but they were a high income earner and they have lots of savings. It's not really going to be that harmful. Whereas the single income family living paycheck to paycheck, and the income earner loses their job and they have 5 hungry mouths at home, what are they going to do? They need, in that time, help. And they might not have wealthy relatives or wealthy friends or an inexhaustible network. Sometimes I think that's the biggest gift to people.
A very large source of wealth, yes.
A very large source of wealth is not just money in the bank, but it's a network, a community, family, friends, a parish where you can fall on each other. It's so great. But as modern time has progressed, that's just slowly lost. It's gone. And there are people in some ways even more vulnerable now because they've lost the village, they've lost the community, they've lost the network. And so there are situations where the state has to be there to help provide that safety net. And that is a good thing, and the church says it ought to be done.
Or even laws, et cetera, enacted just to help even avoid some of these situations from coming up in the first place. 38, let's continue on. It says, most of all, it is essential, where the passion of greed is so strong, to keep the populace within line of duty. For if any may justly strive to better their condition, neither justice nor the common good allows any individual to seize upon that which belongs to another, or under futile and shallow pretext of equality, to lay violent hands on other people's possessions. So there's kind of, violent protests and movements and, a lot of kind of an overthrow and install socialism kind of thing. You're mad, you don't get a right to just bust into the shopkeeper's place and steal a bunch of crap and destroy it. But he says, most true it is that by far the larger part of workers prefer to better themselves by honest labor rather than by doing any wrong to others. He says there's a couple troublemakers out there who are looking to sow discord and get people going and have revolution and violence and seizing of power. And sometimes they hire people to do it for them. And you should think, and they should be, it says, the authority of the law should intervene to put restraint upon such firebrands, to save the working classes from being led astray by their maneuvers and to protect lawful owners from spoliation. Yeah. So. No, it's true. A lot of violent protests, if you really uncover it, you'll oftentimes find somebody with some sort of a greedy interest, inciting it, hiring people to actually participate in it. Fanning the flame. Yeah. Yep. Something. Because most people aren't going to move to that. Okay. All right. So 39. So now we're moving into, we're talking about that individual, and we're going to begin to talk about strikes. Yes. And we're talking about maybe just a look ahead. And that was great. I found an older, maybe more initial translation, but whoever published it was really great because they put little headings in, kind of like some publishers put little headings in the Bible. So we were just at the right of protection, and now we're moving into the workman's rights section. So we're going to touch on strikes, but I believe the formation of unions will come next week. Yes, so we're going to talk about these, workmen's rights, and then we're going to kind of stop there, but maybe a little peek. It's
All right, we'll
the
peek later.
continuation of those rights and what they mean.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about 39, paragraph 39. When work people have recourse to a strike and become voluntarily idle, it is frequently because the hours of labor are too long, or the work too hard, or because they consider their wages insufficient. The grave inconvenience of this not uncommon occurrence should be obviated by public remedial measures, for such paralyzing of labor not only affects the masters and their work people alike, but is extremely injurious to trade and the general interests of the public. Moreover, on such occasions, violence and disorder are generally not far distant, and thus it frequently happens that public peace is imperiled. So essentially, the state, the laws should get involved to prevent these types of troubles from becoming bigger than they need to be, and should assist in getting some remedies delivered as promptly as possible, and in some ways preventing strikes altogether.
Yeah,
the government is invested and has an interest in preventing all of that before it even happens. But if a strike does happen, as quickly as possible, it needs to help the citizens and the employer come to a conclusion.
Yeah, you're saying, strikes impact everyone, not just those workers in particular, and not just that company, but, all the other people and companies and just the greater good that depend on the thing that group of people do down the line. And it doesn't say to squash strikes, not to outlaw them or anything. It doesn't say that at all, but to strike this balance, looking at individual rights and the common good.
Yeah, and now again, this was written in the 1890s. And so the reasons for these strikes then were hours are too long, the work too hard, wages insufficient. There might be different reasons that come up for strikes nowadays, but I've also seen, and I think he might get into this just a pinch more, but sometimes, strikes can be rooted and come from good things that need to be solved. Sometimes they can be used as a manipulative tactic to exert power when it ought not to have been exerted. And I don't know if that was talked about in detail, but that's sometimes now in modern times, that's how it gets used.
Sure. I mean, ideally there wouldn't be strikes ever, not because they're outlawed, but because the workers and the owners get along and are looking out for each other's best interest and treating each other as great as possible.
Yeah. But in an ever polarizing society, I feel that
gets a bit harder.
It's shifted, changed.
Yes. All right, so we talked about, so we'll go into 40. It says, the working man too has interests, in which he should be protected by the state. And first of all, these are the interests of his soul. Life on earth, however good and desirable in itself, is not the final purpose for which man is created. It is only the way and the means to that attainment of truth and that love of goodness in which the full life of the soul consists.
Oh, that's good.
Just a little pause here and make sure we're talking about the best stuff. All right, guys? All right.
Let's just remind ourselves we're just pilgrims.
We're talking about money, but let's keep our eyes on the prize, right? All right, so he talks about that a bit, and then later he says, in this respect, all men are equal. There is here no difference between rich and poor, master and servant, ruler and ruled, for the same Lord is Lord over all. And being called to humanity and to do God's good work. It says, no man may, with impunity, outrage that human dignity which God himself treats with great reverence, nor stand in the way of that higher life, which is the preparation of the eternal life of heaven. Nay, more, no man has in this matter power over himself to consent to any treatment which is calculated to defeat the end and purpose of his being is beyond his right. He cannot give up his soul to servitude. For it is not man's own rights which are here in question, but the rights of God, the most sacred and inviolable of rights. That's good. I'm telling you, you just want to read this thing all day long and put it on a t-shirt and write it on your arm. It's good.
Do you have some commentary on that one?
Oh yeah, here's what's most important. And a reminder, our life, our soul, like the most important things, they're not even our own. They are God's. I have nothing to say other than just reading it again, but
Great,
we can
perfect.
just hit rewind.
Okay. So we just talked about the soul. Let's finish by chatting about paragraph 41. And then maybe we'll get a sneak peek about 42.
Little taster.
Okay. He says, from this follows the obligation of the cessation from work and labor on Sundays and certain holy days. This is a bold statement. The rest from labor is not meant to be understood as mere giving way to idleness. Not just sitting around eating bonbons and watching TV all day. This is not just idleness. It's not about doing nothing.
You mean scrolling TikTok and shoving Cheetos in her mouth? I think that's the more
I guess that's
modern
true. Much less must it be an occasion for spending money and for vicious indulgence as many would have it be. How many people view the weekend as just a way to go blow money and indulge our senses and appetites? That's rest. That's our culture's version of rest. But it should be a rest from labor, hallowed by religion. Rest disposes man to forget for a while the business of his everyday life, to turn his thoughts to things heavenly, and to worship which he so strictly owes to the eternal Godhead. It is this, above all, which is the reason, arid motive of Sunday. That's it. Rest really is for worship.
Yep.
And I think our culture nowadays, I see a lot of people, Sunday fun day. They don't even go to church. They view it as a day just to sleep in and then indulge on everything. Or what's the word now? What do people do?
Self-care.
It's not scroll. It's not self-care. Rot.
Rot. There it is. Rot. Yeah.
Sunday's a day to rot.
Which that can't be good if that's what we're calling it.
No, we all know that it's inherently the worst. It's feeding addiction and apathy.
Yes.
If you can keep it condensed into a 3-hour window and then walk away, maybe it's not actually rotting, but true rotting on Sunday is not good for us.
Yeah. So he's talking about this rest, and then that's kind of our fade into the next section that starts with 42. We're going to start talking about the hours of labor, and it can't be too long. And then he's talking about wages. So this is another transition, another turning point, right? He's set us right with why we're really here, how that influences the importance of Sunday and true rest. And now, and we'll talk about this next time, he's going to start talking about how that should influence the everyday workday.
Bada bing, bada boom.
So continue to join us in this series. Invite a couple friends to come along with us by sharing this podcast and these episodes with them. It's going to be great. So next time we're going to be reading, I think it's a little bit longer because it's just a big chunk on this stuff, 42 to 61. And we are going to be getting into labor unions.
Is that taking us to the end, or is there yet?
Almost the end.
Okay, so we'll
and
have...
then the episode after that will be kind of just the wrapping up, the conclusion from this, and maybe a couple shout outs to some of the encyclicals that have come since.
Bada bing, bada boom. Share on social media. Tag us as you're listening to this, as you share with others. Please leave us a review wherever it is that you listen to podcasts that helps other people find the show. Thanks for tuning in to the Catholic Money Show this week, and in particular, the Rerum Novarum series. And until next time, bye for now.